On today's show, we find out why Philly should stop crying. Remember, as always, you can listen to this episode on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll also discuss what free agents the 49ers should prioritize and who we see returning to the team in 2023. We'll cover all this and more. You're inside the Johnny Dell Football Academy. Hello, Niner faithful, and welcome to the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast on the channel that's trying to answer the whys and hows of the game. And I am an excited Adam Marino, joined by, I think, just as equal excited over last night's outcome, Johnny Dell. What's going on, man?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say excited. I mean, I'm not excited in the sense of, like if we won, I would say well pleased. I am feeling content with the outcome of last night's game.
And let's be clear, why don't we just get into it? Like, let's be clear on the reasoning.
So I put out last night on my Twitter, I said, hey, at Eagles fans, sucks, don't it? With a couple of laughing face emojis. And I've had a few Philly fans coming at me, obviously. You put something like that on Twitter, and of course you're going to get, I knew, I'm not that ignorant, but they seem to be misunderstanding the motivation why. They're acting like the only reason that 49ers fans were rather pleased with the way the game ended and the Eagles loss in the Super Bowl is because we're jealous. It's some sort of jealousy that they were there and we were not. No. I can't speak for every 49ers fan, but most I've talked to have at least come to terms with what happened.
Yeah.
Because it's not one where we felt like we were beat. We just did not have a chance without a quarterback. And the issue with that is that Philly fans would not recognize that. They acted like they were the greatest team that has ever walked the face of the earth, that the 49ers were completely blown out and exposed and shown for not being in the same league as the Eagles, and the Eagles were just so superior. They would post the score of the game as if that means anything when you do not have a quarterback. You don't have a quarterback. I had somebody respond with that twice with a screenshot of the score of the game. And the way that Eagles fans were DMing me, were tweeting at me. The DMs were some of the most disgusting things I've ever had said to me from human beings. I will not repeat what was said on the show. It was stuff, and some of it I don't remember the exact wording of because it was literally saw it, delete, and block that person. I had to have blocked well over 100 Eagles fans. The reason why 49ers fans have been celebrating Philly's loss is because of the Philadelphia Eagles fans. That is why we have been acting the way we have, because Eagles fans were acting the way they were. If it had been, hey, look, that's a tough break for y'all. That sucks. We're still going to celebrate going to the Super Bowl. We won't apologize for that, which I don't expect them to apologize for going to the Super Bowl. Right. It's when you start acting like you have become this king that slayed the dragon, when it was a team that didn't have a quarterback, or you act like you're just the greatest team ever, or you're so superior and you're so amazing, and then spewing sewage at the other fan base. I have never seen a fan base act quite the way that Philly fans did during that game, after that game. And this is not just me that's been saying this. This is anybody who was at the game. Everybody who was at the game said that they were treated horribly at that game. And everybody on Twitter has seen what happened with Eagles fans. It was on my YouTube channel. You can go back and look in not all the comments because I deleted a bunch of them. I would say in my preview video on the Eagles game, I think it deleted 50 or 60 comments because I didn't need that. And there's some of it, there might be young children who see these comments. But anyways, it was all about That's what you get, Eagles fans. Thank you for there you go. There you go. Deal with that for 6 months.
You get what you get. You don't throw a fit. And so I am pulling up on my phone here an interaction with a buddy of mine who is a diehard Philly fan and one of those guys who just is like you said, oh, they're the greatest since sliced bread, and oh, they will just knife through. That defense will be able to stop Kansas City, and we're going to drop 50. And I will say, okay, I knew that their offense would score points. Kansas City doesn't really stop people; they just outscore you, and that was my take. But here's what I told him: the the biggest thing about the Eagles that I can honestly say, and this is on this channel, we truly do try to have level-headed. That's one of the things that I'm really happy about you and I's relationship is we are two adamant fans for the San Francisco 49ers. However, when one thing goes wrong, we don't say fire Shanahan. When one thing goes great, we don't say that Jimmy Garoppolo is the next Tom Brady or Joe Montana combined. Like, we are level-headed and we call it like it is, and we show you why, right? And so what I was saying basically is look at, for example, in baseball, the Houston Astros. They won the World Series and they've been through it. They've been through it, right? The Golden State Warriors, they used to lose to the San Antonio Spurs. They got over the hump. Why? Because they went through it. They went through it. Okay. Philadelphia has not gone through it. It was too easy of a path. I don't care who on ESPN says that Daniel Jones is a good quarterback. I don't care who says it. The film literally does not lie, as we have the man right here on this show can show you the footage that Danny Dimes is not that guy. He's called Danny Dimes as a joke. Okay. It's not really Danny Dimes. It's not him. So you went through Daniel Jones and then you went through Christian McCaffrey running a reverse pass. That was what you went through. Like you didn't go through it enough. And I tried to tell him that even Michael Jordan went through the Pistons, the Celtics. Michael Jordan was swept. Do you understand? Swept. Didn't win a game in the playoffs one year, right? So he went through it. It's what makes you great. So I tried to tell him, bro, you might be favored to win the Super Bowl next year because look what you've been through, but you are not winning it this year. He told me I was goofy. Basketball is a 7-game series. This is a 1-game battle tested. Dude been going through adversity since college. I'm like, bro, college, everyone goes through adversity in college. Get out of here. That's not what I'm talking about. Here is the main thing that I try to tell him, that in this game, there's going to be something that happens. A 3rd and 4 is what I said. There's going to be a 3rd and 4 where either you're not going to like the play call because the coach hasn't been through it either. And first you're going to say, why didn't they run it? They've been running the ball well, which they had. Why didn't they run it? Then all of a sudden, all right, they go to pass. There's an open spot for Jalen to run for 10 yards, and he throws an incomplete. You guys punt, and then Kansas City scores. There's going to be something like that happens. And guess what? Mahomes will not do that. And just like I said, he fumbles, they scoop and score. Look at what the final score was, and look what the position they would have been had that not happened. Literally what I said, which was even worse than a 3rd and 4 incompletion. A fumble scoop for a score is worse than a 3rd and 4 incompletion. So not only was I right, I was right to the extreme. And so he's all upset about the no call and the call and this. And it's just funny because didn't they give up the longest punt return in NFL history? Didn't they give up a 25 to 30 yard run on a guy who literally has one leg? You literally can see him like hobbling. I mean, what a gamer Patrick Mahomes is. You got to feel like the Bears or a team like that is like so kicking themselves for not drafting Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
what can you say about him?
We won't talk about where we were drafting that year either.
Right. So all that to say,
Solomon Thomas says hi.
yeah, what do you say about all that? But they only want to talk about the call. So let's get into that flag.
Right. So, we talked about this a little bit before the show, but not everything that, 49ers fans have been crying for a flag as well for a decade. We wanted that flag on for for Crabtree in the back of the
Yeah.
end zone in the Super Bowl, didn't get it. And I think I mentioned it to you that we're talking about two different flags, and there's different rules that apply to these. One was a defensive holding call, which is what the Eagles got called for. Why? Because the hold happened before the ball was thrown. So there's no instance of uncatchable. There's no instance of anything. If there's a hold, it is a defensive holding or illegal contact. If you're hitting somebody, these are things that if the ball is in the air, they would be called pass interference. But there's a caveat that a pass interference call has to have the pass still has to be catchable. You can't just and the reason why they do that is so that sometimes if, like, say a receiver has a defensive back out of phase, he sees that his quarterback's going to overthrow him by 20 yards, and he tries to make a quick move and get a holding or turn and run into a guy, and they bump him and say, oh, hey, he interfered with me. That you can't do that. The ball at least has to be catchable. So that's why the defensive pass interference is the way it is. The reason why before the pass is thrown, you have illegal contact or defensive holding, and they're different, is because those things happening before the pass can make a pass look uncatchable, much like you saw last night, that there was a hold on the receiver. Mahomes probably couldn't even see the receiver, with the kind of pressure he was under, and was throwing to a spot. That's what a lot of times those plays are, a spot throw. You're throwing to a landmark. You're not throwing to a guy. Your guy's going to be running a route, and it's based on timing, and the quarterback is trying to deliver the ball to a spot. Okay, his guy may have been way short of the ball because, again, he was held early in the route. It was clear. You could see the pull of the jersey. You could see that happening. That is 100% clear as day. Defensive holding, and this whole, you can't call that in that situation. I like Greg Olson as a commentator. I hate that phrase. I hate saying that you can't call that, you can't throw that flag in this moment. If you're not going to throw it in that moment, you shouldn't be throwing it at all. If you're going to throw it in the first quarter, then you throw it in the fourth quarter. It doesn't matter. The size of the moment does not determine the extent of the rules. You don't suddenly get to bend the rules or just let the guys play. They have to still play within the rules. Would you let Nick Bosa jump off sides by half a yard because it's the biggest moment of the Super Bowl? Do you think Chiefs fans would have been okay with that in the Super Bowl in 2019? Would we be okay in the Super Bowl or a championship game with an offensive lineman going against Nick Bosa, starting a half second early and getting into his pass set a little bit better? No, we wouldn't be okay with that. We wouldn't be okay with a guy just slightly violating the rules because it's the big moment of the game. So why is it any different for a receiver running a route with a defensive back covering him? You still can't grab and hold on somebody's jersey and impede the receiver. You can't do that. It doesn't matter. I get let him play. I get that. But the whole, you can't throw that flag in that moment. I don't agree with it at all. And it was absolutely the right call. And, the guy even admitted it in the post-game press conference. He said, yeah, I grabbed him. I held his jersey. It was absolutely a flag. So, and
I
you
was
can say,
hoping to
well,
get away with it, he said.
yeah, he says, I was hoping to get away with it, but I got caught. Hey, I can respect that. Philly fans, I don't respect you. I can respect your players. There's a number of players on the Eagles that I really do genuinely like, and
Oh my
I
gosh.
really respect, and I think are highly talented, really good players. I have no ill will or anything against Philadelphia players. Philly fans, I have a lot of ill will against you because of how you acted the last 2 weeks. So, quit crying about a flag. They'll be crying about it in 2033. We know from experience. So, Philly, take the L and move on.
Yep. And I love that our guys got to call their shot beforehand. Debo saying about Bradbury, and then he's the guy that gets flagged. Like, Bradbury was the guy that on the play that Purdy got hurt was just terrible in coverage. And Debo pointed that out and said that, some of these plays where that make him look good is more on the defensive line. And we've seen some of that as well on our team, but the difference is being able to, again, be level headed and admit that, like, hey, our DBs are made to be even better when you have guys like Bosa on the line just wreaking havoc as quickly as they can. And so the difference is we can admit it and move on from it, whereas Philly is just completely not level-headed, right? Is the best way to explain it, where they just think because they're a fan of the team that they are head and shoulders above everyone else, and it just doesn't work that way.
They were drinking their own Kool-Aid. They were drinking their own bathwater. I mean, they told themselves, because they beat the 49ers, who had been on a long winning streak, had been very dominant in the NFL for 3 months almost, that they were it, and they had put up all these wins during the season, and their head coach is maybe the head coach that has more people want to punch him in the face than anybody else, and because he's just the way he acts. That they bought into all their own hype. The fans did, and they believed that they were not they were unbeatable, and they learned the hard way. And they also learned that you can walk in against Kansas City with the best pass rush in the league and still not be able to stop them. We know about that all too well. And the hard thing about Philly now is they've got to look at it and say, did we just waste an all-time great defensive line? Did we just waste that? Because that defensive line is not going to be the same next year. They're not going to have Ndamukong Suh back next year. Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, do they retire? These guys are getting pretty long in the tooth. Are they going to make it through another full season? Are they going to be producing double-digit sacks? Now you're just left with two good edge guys, but are those edge guys the same as they were this season without that interior rush? It'll be very interesting when the 49ers go to meet Philadelphia next season. And San Francisco might look a lot different too, right, Adam?
So that's one of the next things that I was really curious about with you is, what are some of the guys that we kind of are salivating over? And then I also want to get into, what are the guys that are just hoping and crossing your fingers, like, don't leave us, like, stay, so as we look at some of the free agents, are there any that jump up like just right away that are like, man, these guys would be on our wish list?
As far as free agents, there's a few out there. I think we might talk a little bit more about those guys on Thursday, as we really dive into what the market values are going to look like,
Mhm.
what those things can be expected of. I mean, I think personally, for me, I think on our end, we've got to take care of in-house first, and we have a lot of free agents coming up. I mean, we got 25 guys who are free agents this season when the new league year starts, and we're talking starters. We're talking guys like Jimmy Ward. We're talking Samson Ebukam. We're talking Emmanuel Mosley. We're talking Mike McGlinchey. We're talking Aziz Alshire. We're talking Daniel Brunskill. We're talking Robbie Gold. We're talking Tayshaun Gibson. We're talking Jake Brendel. Okay, that's a lot of starters
It's a
that is out
mouthful.
there. Right. I mean, these are starting guys that started games for us. Then you have role players, important role players, guys like Charles Amenahu. We got guys like Kevin Givens, Ross Dwelly, Jordan Willis, who really came on near the end of the year.
Mhm.
Tyler Croft, who, well, maybe, I don't know, after what happened.
I'm
We
upset
won't
with
we
you.
won't mention Croft. Kerry Hyder, Hassan Ridgeway. These guys are all free agents, and of course the big one, the guy that maybe has been talked about more than any player on our team for the last 4 or 5 years, Jimmy Garoppolo. Okay, these are all free agents. we had Jason Hurley on our show last week. Unfortunately, there were some audio issues with that. So if you're listening to the audio only side, that's why we don't have it on here, is because there was just a lot of audio issues. So we didn't publish the audio side of that. But if you were watching the live stream, we tried to kind of convey as much of the information as we could. Some quick cliff notes are, 49ers right now have $9.1 million in cap space. We talked about Jason about maybe some of the contracts that they could restructure to free up some space. And he had mentioned, and what we've seen, there's been some numbers thrown out there, people saying upwards of $50-60 million in space. I do not foresee, I agree with Jason, I don't foresee the 49ers going that extreme as far as creating that much space. I don't think they need to. I don't think that fits the goal. That's kicking a lot of cap spending down the road. You don't want to kick that much. That can give you problems. Okay. Right now there's like 11 teams in the league that are over the salary cap this season already. And they have not done their draft. They have not done any free agent signings. That is how you get there in a COVID salary cap year. We're still facing the losses from the COVID season. The league said they were going to spread out over 3 years. This is the third year of that. Okay, so we're still experiencing those COVID cap expenses this season. And I look at a team like the Jets. Okay, the Jets in 2021, going into the 2021 season, I remember looking at their cap. They were one of the top teams in cap space. They were somewhere in the top 4 in cap space. They are right now over almost $1 million over the salary cap this season. That's what can happen when you start expecting the cap to go up a little bit more. You don't plan well for it, and they're going to have to restructure a bunch, kick more of that cap down the road, and they're going to struggle to have that over the next season, especially for a team that their big investment in a quarterback on a rookie contract is not exactly working out. For the 49ers, I think, the biggest free agent that we have as far as the cap cost is going to be Jimmy Garoppolo. He's not coming back. I mean, you can be a diehard Jimmy fan, and you just have to realize he's not coming back. He's not going to settle for backup money again. It's just not happening. He doesn't want to settle for a backup role. Last season was a completely different scenario. People keep bringing up last season. Why wasn't he signed? Why didn't anybody trade for him? Because he had shoulder surgery and he was not able to throw. And there is always the risk that you're going to have a setback after a surgery and you could be out for the year. Nobody was giving up draft capital and paying starter money to a guy who had shoulder surgery. There's also the fact that it may not have even been approved by the league. They have to pass a physical to be traded. Now teams can sign waivers and stuff, but I doubt the 49ers were going to sign a waiver that if he couldn't pass a physical that he was going to revert back to him, because then they couldn't cut him. They can't cut a guy that is injured. You can't. So if he can't pass a physical, you can't cut him either. They were not about to do that. So they had to wait it out till he was healthy. This season is not that season. He's going to be a free agent. He's going to go somewhere, get paid as a starter, and be a starter. That is going to happen. Jimmy Garoppolo is not walking back in the 49ers facility again as a player. It's just not happening. So, that guy's off the table. Another guy I would be really surprised if they bring back is Jimmy Ward. I would love to see him back, but I am not sold that we're going to bring him back. I think he's going to want a lot more money than what we would necessarily budget towards his position. We generally do not budget a lot to slot players. We just don't. That's just not in our team philosophy. That's why we let K1 Williams walk. I think the team really does believe in Samuel Womack. I think what they need to do is put him at that slot position and keep him there. Do not move him to the outside and try and have him learn out there. Either have him or maybe Ambry Thomas, somebody to take that spot and say, this is your spot. Grow in this position. Do that. Another guy I think that's interesting, he is a free agent this year. I think he's going to come cheap, that I think might excel in that slot position is a Tarvarius Moore. He's got safety skills, but he's also got top corner speed. It's an intriguing fit there. I don't know if at this point in his career, though, you want to change positions again. You know, he was drafted as a safety. They moved him to corner. Didn't work out well. They put him back at safety. He's had ups and downs. Do you move him again? I don't know. I think it's intriguing of the speed that he brings to that position. Has struggled with angles in tackling. Now that's also been as the high safety. Now, if you give him some smaller lanes that he has to take care of, does he function better? It's an intriguing thought. But to me, you know, those are two guys that I say absolutely not. Another guy would be Azeez Al-Shire. He's going to want a good sized payday, and I think Houston is going to be willing to match that, and they're going to give him that big payday. You know, after that, it starts to get a little more wishy-washy. If there's one guy I say we do need to really deeply think about bringing back, be Mike McGlinchey. And I know. Everybody loves to punch on Mike McGlinchey. Everybody loves to say, boo, Mike McGlinchey. We don't want Mike McGlinchey. We want him gone. We want an upgrade. I don't see a path to an upgrade for Mike McGlinchey. We don't
He's
have
an
the
NFL starter. He is.
Right. And he is a top 15 tackle. Even if you say top 20 tackle, there's not another top 20 tackle that's going to be available, in my opinion. Okay, you may see somebody, maybe a guy who's been a long starter that a team is willing to part with. I don't think you're going to find somebody that's going to be better than Mike McGlinchey in free agency. Or if he's better, we're not going to be able to afford him. Definitely not going to be able to do that. And we don't have a path to the draft in that. Me and Rowan talked about that on his show last Friday, that tackles get overdrafted in the draft. You will see guys that are fourth round talents going in the second round at tackle. Why? Because tackle is a hard position to fill, and it's a hard position to find. And so teams need tackles. You want to block those edge guys. I mean, look at how valuable Kansas City's tackles were in the Super Bowl. That is why teams will reach for tackles, because you have to have decent tackles. And so you're not going to find that first round talent in the fourth round at the tackle position. It just doesn't happen. I mean, maybe once in a blue moon. It's like kind of like finding a seventh round rookie quarterback. It's extremely rare, right? We all heard that storyline this year. It's similar for tackles. You don't tend to see really good tackles that make it out of the first and second round. I just don't see us having the draft capital to get a day one starter in at right tackle. So to me, if you aren't bringing back Mike McGlinchey, your offensive line has taken a step back, and we don't want that. We can improve the center position. We can improve a swing tackle position. Maybe we can improve depth along the offensive line. I don't see a path for improving the tackle spot.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see in the coming weeks, just people are just going to talk more and more about it. We're definitely approaching that lull of the season where it's too far away to truly get into it, but yet we're so excited of like, we want to know what the team is going to be like. We want to know who we're keeping and who would be interested. You know, in these coming weeks, I feel like you may start to see on Twitter, you know, certain players that, oh, it's rumored that they're excited to talk to the 49ers. And it's like, oh, and it could be something or it could be nothing. So I feel like some of our shows may even have to dip into that in the next coming weeks. If something like that happens, I wouldn't be surprised. So we'll definitely kind of check that as it comes on that radar. And on Thursday, like you mentioned, we will get into some of those guys that we could kind of potentially see like, wow, this guy would be a great fit. So stay tuned. As always, guys, remember that we really appreciate all of the love that you guys give us. Remember to like and subscribe so that we can grow this show and have more guests and just improve the show, right? So make sure you're telling all your friends and family, and make sure that you like and subscribe. Remember, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, on Apple, on Spotify, you name it, right? And then you can always catch us on YouTube. Some of you may have a crush on us. We totally get that. So if you want to, catch us on YouTube, no, don't make that face, dude. It's like, who would have a crush on us? Hey, our moms. Our moms think we're handsome, right?
My wife thinks I'm cool.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Let's maybe I'm using the term cool too liberally.
Right.
She
So,
tolerates me.
yeah, exactly. As do I. Oh. So, again, thank you for joining us. Take care of each other. And as always, go Niners.